The seven-time Formula One world champion sits before a room full of stunned journalists, tears streaming down his face as he makes the most shocking revelation in motorsport history. What Lewis Hamilton is about to expose will destroy careers, topple empires, and change Formula One forever. For 4 years, Lewis has carried the pain of Abu Dhabi 2021, the race that stole his 8th championship in the most controversial finish ever witnessed. The world moved on. Lewis tried to move on, but the truth never dies. Now, armed with secret documents, hidden recordings, and evidence that proves his worst fears were real, Lewis is ready to reveal what really happened that December night in the desert. What he's discovered goes far beyond one stolen race. It's a web of corruption that reaches the highest levels of Formula One. But as Lewis prepares to speak, he knows there's no going back. The people he's about to expose have money, power, and secrets worth killing for. His family has been threatened. His friends have been silenced. Even the man who gave him this explosive evidence has mysteriously disappeared. Yet Lewis Hamilton, a kid from Stevenage who conquered the world, refuses to stay quiet any longer. What he's about to say will either bring justice to Formula One or destroy everything he's worked for. This is the moment when the most successful driver in F1 history becomes something else entirely, a whistleblower willing to risk everything. For the truth, the flash of cameras felt like lightning striking over and over. Lewis Hamilton sat in the hard plastic chair at the Silverstone Media Center, his hands shaking as he reached for the water bottle in front of him. The bottle slipped from his grip, clattering onto the table with a loud bang that made everyone in the room jump. "Sorry," Lewis whispered, his voice barely audible through the microphone. Sarah Chun, the veteran Formula One journalist who had covered Lewis's career for 15 years, leaned forward in her seat. She had seen Lewis win races, lose championships, face criticism, and handle pressure that would break most people. But she had never seen him like this. That Lewis's dark eyes were red and filled with tears. His usually perfect appearance was disheveled. His Mercedes team shirt was wrinkled, and his hands wouldn't stop shaking. The man who had driven faster than anyone else on Earth looked completely lost. "Lewis," Sarah said gently, "are you okay? Do you need a moment?" Lewis looked up at her, then at the packed room of journalists, photographers, and television cameras. The British Grand Prix weekend was supposed to be a celebration. His home race. The crowd outside was singing his name. British flags hung from every grandstand. This should have been his moment of joy. Instead, Lewis took a deep breath that sounded more like a sob. "I can't do this anymore," he said, his voice breaking on every word. I can't pretend everything is fine when it's not." The room fell completely silent. You could hear the air conditioning humming. Someone's phone buzzed, but nobody moved to check it. All eyes were on Lewis as tears began to stream down his face. "Lewis," called out James Murphy from Sky Sports. "What's happening? What's wrong?" Lewis wiped his eyes with the back of his hand, but more tears kept coming. He looked down at his hands, then back up at the cameras. "What the FIA has done," Lewis started, then stopped. He shook his head. "What they've hidden from all of us, it's unbelievable. It's absolutely unbelievable." The journalists started whispering to each other. Cameras clicked faster. Someone in the back of the room stood up to get a better view. Lewis noticed all of this, but he didn't care anymore. He was tired of caring what people thought. "I've been quiet for too long," Lewis continued, his voice getting stronger even though the tears kept flowing. "I've been a good soldier. I've followed the rules. I've respected the sport. But I can't keep quiet about what I know." Sarah Chun raised her hand. "Lewis, what exactly are you talking about? What has the FIA done?" Lewis looked directly at her. Sarah had always been fair to him. She had written about his wins and his losses with equal respect. If anyone deserved to know the truth, it was her. "Abu Dhabi," Lewis said, and the room somehow got even quieter. "The 2021 season. Everyone thinks they know what happened. Everyone thinks it was just a mistake. A bad decision by the race director." Lewis stood up from his chair. The microphone was still clipped to his shirt, so his voice carried clearly through the room. "But there's something you all need to know. Something that will change everything you think about that race. About that season. About this entire sport." A journalist from Germany raised his hand. "Are you saying there was more to the Abu Dhabi decision than we know?" Lewis laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. It was bitter and sad. More to it, Lewis repeated. There was everything to it. The FIA, they knew exactly what they were doing. They planned it. They wanted it to happen exactly the way it did. The room exploded. Journalists started shouting questions. Cameras flashed like fireworks. Someone knocked over a chair trying to get closer to Lewis. Order! Order! Shouted the FIA press officer, a thin man named David who always looked nervous. Let's keep this civil. But Lewis held up his hand, and somehow the room quieted again. There was something in his expression that commanded respect, even in his broken state. I have documents, Lewis said slowly, making sure every word was clear. I have emails. I have recordings. I have proof that the 2021 championship was stolen from me. Not just by bad officiating, but by corruption. By people who decided the result before the race even started. Sarah Chin's mouth dropped open. Other journalists were frantically typing on their phones, sending breaking news alerts to their editors. The FIA press officer was whispering urgently into his radio. That's a very serious accusation, Lewis, said Maria Santos from ESPN. Are you sure you want to make these claims publicly? Lewis looked at her with eyes that had seen too much. Maria, I've been carrying this secret for weeks. It's eating me alive. I can't sleep. I can't eat. I can't even look at my trophies without feeling sick. Lewis walked closer to the front of the room, where the cameras had the best view of his face. Do you know what it's like to have your dreams stolen? To know that you were cheated, but everyone tells you to move on? To smile and shake hands with the people who robbed you? His voice was getting louder now, more passionate. I've tried to be professional. I've tried to focus on racing. But every time I get in that car, I think about what was taken from me. Not just a race, not just a championship, but my faith in the sport I love. Lewis paused and looked around the room. Every face was staring at him with complete attention. The FIA has been lying to all of us. To the drivers, to the teams, to the fans. They've been manipulating results. They've been deciding who wins and who loses based on what makes them the most money. Lewis interrupted the FIA press officer. I think you should be very careful about what you're saying here. Lewis turned to look at the man, and his eyes flashed with anger. Careful, Lewis said. I've been careful for 4 years. I've been quiet and respectful while people who cheated me got celebrated. While the truth got buried deeper and deeper. Lewis walked back to his chair, but didn't sit down. He placed both hands on the table and leaned forward toward the microphones. There's something else you all need to know. Something that will explain how I got this information. How I learned the truth about what really happened. The room was so quiet you could hear hearts beating. I have documents that prove everything I'm saying. But first, I need to tell you about Marcus. Sarah Chun leaned forward in her chair. Marcus? Who? Lewis looked directly into the main television camera, knowing that millions of people around the world were watching. Marcus Weatherby, former FIA race director. He worked closely with Michael Massey, and 3 weeks ago he called me with information that changed everything. Lewis picked up his water bottle with both hands to stop them from shaking as he took a sip. Marcus told me things that no one else knows. Secret meetings, hidden recordings, financial deals that influenced race results. And he told me that what happened in Abu Dhabi was just the beginning. The journalists were scribbling notes as fast as they could write. Phones were ringing throughout the room as news editors called for updates. Where is Marcus now? Asked James Murphy. Lewis's expression grew dark. That's what I need to find out. Because after he gave me this information, after he showed me proof of years of corruption, Marcus Weatherby disappeared. Lewis stood up straight and looked around the room one more time. I'm not done talking. I'm not done fighting. And I'm not done seeking justice for what was stolen from me and from every other driver who was cheated by this system. He reached down and unclipped the microphone from his shirt. But first, I need to find Marcus. Because his life might be in danger. And because he has even more evidence that will shock the world. Lewis placed the microphone on the table and walked toward the exit. The room erupted in shouting questions, but Lewis didn't turn around. Just before he reached the door, he stopped and looked back at the cameras. The truth is coming out, he said. All of it. And it's going to change Formula One forever. Then Lewis Hamilton walked out of the media center, leaving behind a room full of journalists who knew they had just witnessed the beginning of the biggest scandal in motorsport history. Outside, the British crowd was still singing his name. unaware that their hero had just declared war on the very people who controlled the sport they loved. 3 weeks earlier, Lewis Hamilton sat in his Monaco apartment, watching the sunset paint the Mediterranean Sea in shades of orange and pink. The view from his balcony was beautiful, but Lewis barely noticed it. His mind was somewhere else, lost in thoughts about the upcoming British Grand Prix. His phone buzzed on the glass table. Beside him, Lewis glanced at the screen and saw a number he didn't recognize. Usually, he didn't answer calls from strangers, but something made him pick up this time. "Hello, Lewis Hamilton." The voice on the other end was shaky, like an old man trying to catch his breath. "Yes, this is Lewis." "Who is this?" "My name is Marcus Weatherby. I used to work for the FIA. I was a race director. I worked very closely with Michael Massey." Lewis sat up straighter in his chair. Michael Massey was the race director who made the controversial decision in Abu Dhabi that cost Lewis his 8th championship. Just hearing that name made Lewis's heart beat faster. "What do you want?" Lewis asked, trying to keep his voice calm. "I need to see you, Lewis. There are things about the 2021 season that you deserve to know. Things that will change everything. You think about that year." Lewis stood up and walked to the edge of his balcony. The sea breeze felt cool against his face, but his body was getting warm with anger. "Look, Mr. Weatherby, I don't know who you are or what you're trying to do, but I've moved on from 2021. I don't want to talk about Abu Dhabi anymore. Please, Lewis, just listen to me for 1 minute." There was something in the old man's voice that made Lewis pause. It wasn't the usual voice of a reporter trying to get a story or a fan wanting attention. This man sounded scared. "I'm listening," Lewis said quietly. "I don't have much time left, Lewis. I'm very sick. Cancer. The doctors say I have maybe 6 months to live." Lewis felt a small tug of sympathy, but he was still suspicious. "I'm sorry to hear that, but I still don't understand why you're calling me." "Because I can't die with this secret, Lewis. What we did to you in Abu Dhabi, what we covered up afterward, it's eating me alive. I haven't slept properly in 4 years." Lewis gripped the balcony railing tighter. "What do you mean, what we did?" "The race director decision wasn't just wrong, Lewis. It wasn't just a mistake made under pressure. It was planned. There were meetings. There were phone calls. There were people who wanted Max Verstappen to win that championship, and they made sure it happened." Lewis's heart was pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. "Are you saying the race was fixed?" "I'm saying there are things you need to know, documents you need to see, recordings you need to hear, but I can't talk about this over the phone. It's not safe." Lewis looked around his apartment, suddenly feeling like someone might be listening to his conversation. "Not safe? What do you mean?" "Lewis, please, can we meet somewhere? Somewhere private? I have proof of everything I'm telling you. But if the wrong people find out I'm talking to you, both of us could be in danger." Lewis walked back inside his apartment and closed the balcony door. His hands were shaking as he held the phone. "This is crazy. You're talking like we're in some kind of spy movie. I wish it was just a movie, Lewis. But this is real. The corruption in Formula One goes deeper than you can imagine. And what happened to you in 2021 was just the beginning." Lewis sat down on his couch and put his head in his hands. "Why should I believe you? How do I know you're not just some crazy person trying to mess with my head?" "Because I know things, Lewis. Things that were never made public. I know about the secret meeting between Red Bull executives and FIA officials 2 days before the Abu Dhabi race. I know about the phone call that was made to race control during the safety car period. I know about the money that changed hands." Lewis felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. The old man was talking about specific details that sounded very real. "What money?" "Meet me, Lewis. Let me show you everything. Then you can decide if you believe me or not." Lewis was quiet for a long moment. Part of him wanted to hang up and forget this conversation ever happened. He had worked hard to move past the pain of 2021. He had found peace with losing that championship. He had focused on the future instead of the past. But another part of him needed to know the truth, even if it hurt, even if it brought back all the anger and disappointment he had worked so hard to overcome. "Where do you want to meet?" Lewis asked. "Geneva. There's a small cafe called Le Petit Jardin on Rue de la Fontaine. It's quiet and private. Can you meet me there tomorrow at 2 p.m.? Lewis looked at his calendar on his phone. He had a meeting with his team in the morning, but his afternoon was free. "I can be there." "But Mr. Weatherby, if this is some kind of joke or trick." "It's not, Lewis. I swear on my mother's grave, this is not a trick. I'm a dying man who wants to clear his conscience. That's all." After Lewis hung up the phone, he sat in his apartment for a long time, staring at the wall. His mind was racing with questions. What if Marcus was telling the truth? What if there really was a conspiracy? What if Lewis's 8th championship had been stolen from him in ways he never imagined? He picked up his phone and called his father, Anthony Hamilton. "Dad, I need to talk to you about something." "What's wrong, son? You sound upset." Lewis told his father about the phone call, about Marcus's claims, about the meeting in Geneva. Anthony listened without interrupting. "What do you think I should do, Dad?" Lewis asked when he finished. Anthony was quiet for a moment. "Lewis, you know I've always told you to trust your instincts. What does your heart tell you?" "My heart tells me I need to know the truth, even if it hurts." "Then go to Geneva. Meet this man. But be careful, son. If what he's saying is true, then there are powerful people who won't want this information to come out." That night, Lewis couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Abu Dhabi, about the final lap, about the moment when everything changed. He remembered the confusion, the radio messages, the feeling that something wasn't right. He had always assumed it was just poor officiating, a bad decision made under pressure. But what if it was more than that? What if it was planned? The next morning, Lewis took a private jet to Geneva. During the flight, he tried to imagine what Marcus would look like, what he would say, what kind of proof he might have. As the plane descended toward Geneva airport, Lewis felt nervous in a way he hadn't felt since his first Formula One race. He was about to learn something that might change his life forever. The taxi ride to the cafe seemed to take forever. Lewis kept looking out the window, wondering if he was making a mistake. But it was too late to turn back. Now Le Petit Jardin was exactly as Marcus had described it: small, quiet, and private. Lewis arrived a few minutes early and chose a table in the corner where he could see the entrance. At exactly 2 p.m., an old man walked through the door. He was thin and pale, with gray hair and kind eyes. He was carrying a worn leather briefcase that looked like it had seen better days. The man looked around the cafe until he spotted Lewis. Their eyes met across the room, and Lewis knew immediately that this was Marcus Weatherby. Marcus walked slowly to Lewis's table, his footsteps careful and deliberate. When he reached the table, he extended his hand. "Lewis Hamilton, I presume." Lewis shook the old man's hand. It felt cold and fragile. "Mr. Weatherby, please sit down." Marcus sat across from Lewis and placed his briefcase on the table between them. "Thank you for coming, Lewis. I know this must be very strange for you." "It is strange," Lewis admitted. "But I'm here, so tell me what you know." Marcus looked around the cafe to make sure no one was listening. Then he leaned forward and spoke in a quiet voice. "Lewis, what I'm about to show you will change everything. You think you know about Formula One. Are you ready for that?" Lewis took a deep breath and nodded. "I'm ready." Marcus placed his hand on the briefcase and looked directly into Lewis's eyes. "Then let's begin." Marcus Weatherby's hands shook as he opened the old leather briefcase. Inside, Lewis could see stacks of papers, printed emails, and what looked like small recording devices. The smell of old leather and fear filled the air between them. "Lewis, what I'm about to show you will hurt. It will make you angry, but it will also give you the truth you deserve." Marcus pulled out a thick folder and placed it on the table. The label on the front read, "Abu Dhabi 2021, Confidential." Lewis felt his heart start beating faster. Just seeing those words brought back all the pain from that night. The confusion, the disappointment, the feeling that something wasn't right. "Before we start," Marcus said, "I need you to understand something. I was part of this. I helped make it happen, and I've been living with the guilt ever since." Lewis looked at the old man's face. He could see the pain in Marcus's eyes, the weight of carrying a terrible secret. "What exactly did you do?" Marcus opened the folder and pulled out a printed email. The date at the top showed December 10th, 2021, 2 days before the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. "Read this," Marcus said, sliding the paper across the table. Lewis picked up the email and began to read. His hands started shaking as he saw the words on the page. The email was from a high-ranking FIA official to Michael Massey, the race director. The subject line read, "Abu Dhabi Race Strategy, Final Instructions." Lewis read out loud in a whisper, "Michael, as we discussed, the championship must be decided on track, not in the steward's room. Whatever it takes to ensure wheel-to-wheel racing in the final laps. The sport needs a dramatic finish for global television audiences. Lewis looked up at Marcus. This is telling the race director to manipulate the race. Keep reading, Marcus said sadly. Lewis continued. Red Bull executives have confirmed their driver is ready for a final sprint. Make sure he gets that opportunity. The financial implications of this championship are too important to leave to chance. Lewis felt sick to his stomach. He put the email down and stared at Marcus. Are you telling me that the FIA wanted Max to win? That they planned it? Marcus nodded slowly. That's exactly what I'm telling you. But there's more. Much more. Marcus pulled out another document. This one was a phone record showing calls between FIA officials and Red Bull team members during the week before Abu Dhabi. 17 phone calls, Lewis. In the 5 days before the race. They were coordinating everything. Lewis studied the phone records. The numbers were real. The times were specific. This wasn't something someone could fake easily. But why? Lewis asked. Why would the FIA want Max to win instead of me? Marcus pulled out a financial document. It showed television viewing figures, merchandise sales, and sponsorship deals. Money, Lewis. It's always about money. The FIA believed that a young, aggressive driver like Max would bring in younger fans. They thought his story would sell better. Then your 8th championship. Lewis felt anger building inside him like a fire. So they stole my championship for better TV ratings? I'm afraid so. But Lewis, there's something even worse. Marcus reached into his briefcase and pulled out a small recording device. It was the kind used for official meetings. This is a recording from race control during the Abu Dhabi race. It's the conversation that happened during the safety car period. The conversation that was never made public. Lewis stared at the device. What's on it? The proof that Michael Massey was following orders. That he didn't make a mistake. That he did exactly what he was told to do. Marcus pressed play on the device. The sound quality was clear, and Lewis could hear voices he recognized. The first voice was Michael Massey. We have a problem. If we follow normal safety car procedures, the race will end under yellow flags. Hamilton will win the championship. A second voice, one Lewis didn't recognize. That's not acceptable. The television audience expects a racing finish. Find a way to restart the race. Massey's voice again. But the rules say all lapped cars must unlap themselves. That will take too long. The unknown voice. Then don't follow that rule. Only unlap the cars between Hamilton and Verstappen. Give them one lap to fight for the championship. Lewis felt like he couldn't breathe. He was listening to the moment. His championship was stolen, and it was all planned. Who is the other voice? Lewis asked. A senior FIA official. Someone who had the power to override normal procedures. Marcus stopped the recording and looked at Lewis with sad eyes. Lewis, I was in that room. I heard this conversation happen, and I didn't stop it. I was told to keep quiet and follow orders. Lewis put his head in his hands. Everything he had believed about that race was wrong. It wasn't just bad officiating. It wasn't just a mistake. It was theft. There's more, Marcus continued. This wasn't the only race that was manipulated. The FIA has been influencing results for years. Marcus pulled out more documents. Race reports that had been changed. Penalty decisions that didn't match the evidence. Financial records showing payments to officials. Lewis, they've been running Formula One like a television show, not a sport. They decide who should win based on what creates the best story for the fans. Lewis looked through the documents. There were reports from races where he had been penalized unfairly, where other drivers had received advantages they didn't deserve. How many people know about this? Lewis asked. Too many to count, but they're all scared to speak up. The FIA has power over everyone in the sport. Teams, drivers, officials, media. If you cross them, your career is over. Lewis thought about his own career. All the times he had been frustrated by strange decisions. All the times he had felt like the rules were being applied differently to him. Why are you telling me this now? Marcus reached across the table and touched Lewis's hand. His skin felt cold and thin. Because I'm dying, Lewis. The cancer is spreading. Fast. I have maybe 3 months left, not 6 like I told you on the phone. Lewis saw tears in the old man's eyes. I can't meet my maker knowing I helped steal your championship. You deserve to be an 8-time world champion. You earned it. On the track. But we took it away from you in a conference room. Lewis felt his own tears starting to fall. All the anger, all the disappointment, all the questions from the past 4 years were finally getting answers. What do you want me to do with this information? Marcus gathered up the documents and put them back in the briefcase. Then he pushed the briefcase across the table to Lewis. Take it. All of it. The emails, the phone records, the recordings, the financial documents. Everything. Lewis stared at the briefcase. It contained the proof of the biggest scandal in Formula One history. But Marcus, if I reveal this, it will destroy people's careers. It will damage the sport. Marcus nodded sadly. I know. But Lewis, what's worse? A corrupt sport that cheats its heroes? Or a sport that faces its mistakes and tries to do better? Lewis picked up the briefcase. It felt heavy, not just because of the papers inside, but because of the weight of truth it carried. There's something else you need to know, Marcus said, his voice getting quieter. The corruption didn't end with Abu Dhabi. They're planning something for this season too. Lewis looked up quickly. What do you mean? I still have friends inside the FIA. People who are disgusted by what's happening, but too scared to speak up. They've told me that there are plans to influence the championship fight this year. Lewis felt a chill run down his spine. Influence? It how? I don't have all the details yet. But there are meetings happening. Phone calls being made. The same pattern as 2021. Marcus stood up slowly from his chair. He looked tired and weak. Lewis, I'm trusting you with this information because I believe you're the only driver brave enough to fight back. But you need to be careful. These people have money, power, and connections. They won't let you expose them without a fight. Lewis stood up too, still holding the briefcase. What will you do now? Marcus smiled sadly. I'm going to disappear for a while. If anyone asks, you never met me. I was never here. Until you're ready to reveal the truth, my safety depends on staying hidden. Lewis watched as Marcus walked toward the cafe door. Just before he left, the old man turned back. Lewis, you have the power to change everything, to make Formula One the fair sport it should be. But once you start this fight, there's no going back. Are you ready for that? Lewis looked down at the briefcase in his hands, then back at Marcus. I'm ready. Marcus nodded and walked out of the cafe, leaving Lewis alone with the most dangerous secret in motorsport history. Lewis sat back down and opened the briefcase one more time. Inside was enough evidence to destroy the current FIA leadership and change Formula One forever. But as he looked at the documents, Lewis realized that Marcus was right about one thing. Once he started this fight, there would be no going back. The question was he brave enough to take on the most powerful people in his sport? Lewis closed the briefcase and stood up. He had his answer. Lewis Hamilton couldn't sleep. For 3 nights straight, he had been sitting at his dining table in Monaco, surrounded by the documents Marcus had given him. Coffee cups and empty water. Bottles covered the surface around papers that told the story of the biggest lie in Formula One history. Every time Lewis tried to close his eyes, he saw the emails. Every time he tried to rest, he heard the recording of race control planning to steal his championship. The anger inside him burned like a fire that wouldn't go out that he picked up his phone and called Rebecca Martinez, the lawyer who had handled his contracts for the past 8 years. Rebecca was smart, tough, and most importantly, someone Lewis trusted completely. Lewis? It's 3 in the morning. What's wrong? Rebecca, I need you to come to Monaco immediately. I have something to show you that will change everything. Can't it wait until normal hours? No, it can't. Rebecca, this is about my championship. About corruption in the FIA. I have proof that the 2021 season was fixed. There was silence on the other end of the phone. Then Rebecca spoke in a very serious voice. Lewis, that's a huge accusation. Are you absolutely sure about what you're saying? Come see for yourself. Bring your laptop and your legal expertise. We're going to need both. 2 hours later, Rebecca was sitting at Lewis's table, reading through the documents with her mouth open in shock. She was a lawyer who had seen many scandals, but nothing like this. Lewis, if these documents are real, this is the biggest sports scandal in history. This makes match fixing in soccer look like a small lie. They're real, Rebecca. I've checked. The email addresses, the phone numbers, the dates. Everything matches what I remember from that weekend. Rebecca picked up the recording device and listened to the race control conversation again. She shook her head in disbelief. This proves that Michael Massey was following direct orders from FIA officials, that the safety car procedure was changed specifically to help Max Verstappen win. Lewis felt his anger rising again. They stole my 8th championship, Rebecca. They took something I earned and gave it to someone else because it made better television. But Lewis, if we reveal this information, it will destroy people's careers. It will damage Formula One's reputation around the world. Are you prepared for that? Lewis looked at Rebecca with determination in his eyes. I'm prepared for the truth, whatever that costs. Rebecca closed her laptop and looked directly at Lewis. Then we need to be very careful about how we handle this. These people have power, money, and connections. They won't let you expose them without fighting back. Lewis spent the next week conducting his own investigation. He made phone calls to drivers he trusted, asking careful questions about their experiences with FIA decisions. His first call was to Daniel Ricciardo, who had always been honest about the sport's problems. Danny, can I ask you something? Have you ever felt like race decisions were strange? Like maybe they weren't based purely on the rules? Daniel was quiet for a moment. Lewis, why are you asking me this? Just answer the question, please. Honestly, yes, there have been times when penalties seemed unfair. Times when some drivers got different treatment than others. But I always assumed it was just human error. What if I told you it wasn't human error? What if I told you some decisions were made on purpose? Lewis, what are you talking about? Lewis couldn't tell Daniel about the documents yet. It was too dangerous. But he needed to know if other drivers had noticed the same patterns he had. Just keep thinking about it, Danny. And if you remember anything specific, call me. Lewis's next call was to Sebastian Vettel, who had retired from racing but still followed the sport closely. Seb, I need to ask you about something. Did you ever have meetings with FIA officials that seemed unusual? Sebastian's voice became very serious. Lewis, what kind of meetings are you talking about? Meetings where they talked about the good of the sport or creating exciting racing instead of just following the rules. There was a long pause before Sebastian answered. Yes, in 2019, I was approached by an FIA official who wanted to discuss my role in Formula One's future. They talked about how certain storylines would be good for the sport's growth. Lewis felt his heart beating faster. What kind of storylines? Young drivers challenging the established champions. Close championship fights. Dramatic finishes to seasons. They said the sport needed to evolve to keep fans interested. Did they ask you to do anything specific? Not directly, but they hinted that cooperation would be remembered when it came to stewarding decisions and technical regulations. Lewis thanked Sebastian and hung up the phone. The corruption was even bigger than he had imagined. It wasn't just about Abu Dhabi. It was about years of manipulation. Over the next few days, Lewis cross-referenced the documents with his own memories. Strange penalty decisions started to make sense. Unusual technical regulations began to show a pattern. Race incidents that had seemed like coincidences now looked planned. But as Lewis dug deeper into the evidence, he started to notice things that worried him. Cars that seemed to be following him. Phone calls that had strange echoes, like someone else was listening. Emails that took longer than usual to send. One morning, Lewis was walking to his car when he noticed a black sedan parked across the street from his building. The same car had been there for 3 days. When Lewis looked directly at it, the car drove away quickly. That afternoon, Lewis received a text message from an unknown number. Stop asking questions about things that don't concern you. Lewis showed the message to Rebecca, who immediately became worried. Lewis, I think they know what you're doing. We need to be more careful. Or maybe we need to move faster, Lewis replied. If they're watching me, it means they're scared. That evening, Lewis's phone rang. The caller ID showed it was his childhood friend Ryan Cooper, who worked as a mechanic for one of the smaller F1 teams. Lewis, mate, I need to tell you something. I got fired today. What? What? They said it was budget cuts, but that's not true. My boss told me privately that he got a call from someone high up in the FIA. They said I was asking too many questions about race procedures. Lewis felt his blood turn cold. Ryan, what questions were you asking? Just stuff about how decisions get made. About who has the power to change rules during races. I was curious after you called last week. Lewis realized that his investigation was putting innocent people in danger. His friend had lost his job because Lewis had asked him to. Think about FIA corruption. Ryan, I'm sorry. This is my fault. Lewis, what's going on? What are you involved in? Lewis couldn't tell Ryan the truth. It would put him in even more danger. Just stay away from this topic, okay? Don't ask any more questions. And be careful." After hanging up, Lewis sat in his apartment feeling the weight of responsibility. Every person he talked to was at risk. Every question he asked could cost someone their job or worse. But Lewis also knew that if he stopped now, the corruption would continue. More drivers would be cheated. More championships would be stolen. The sport he loved would remain a lie. Rebecca came over that evening with her laptop and a worried expression. "Lewis, I've been researching the people mentioned in these documents. Some of them have connections to very powerful organizations. Political connections, financial connections. These aren't just sports officials. They're part of much larger networks." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that if we expose this corruption, we're not just fighting the FIA. We're fighting people who have the power to destroy careers, ruin reputations, and maybe even threaten personal safety." Lewis looked at the documents spread across his table. Evidence of years of lies and manipulation. Proof that his 8th championship had been stolen from him. "Rebecca, what would you do if you were me?" Rebecca was quiet for a long moment. "Honestly, I would be scared. These people have shown they'll do anything to protect their secrets. But would you fight them?" Rebecca looked at Lewis with respect in her eyes. "If I had your courage, yes, I would fight them. Because some things are more important than personal safety." Lewis made his decision that night. He would continue his investigation, but he would be smarter about it. He would gather more evidence, build a stronger case, and find a way to expose the truth without putting more innocent people at risk. He picked up his phone and called Sarah Chun, the journalist who had always been fair to him. Sarah had covered Formula One for 15 years and had a reputation for honest reporting. "Sarah, I need your help with something. Something that could be the biggest story of your career." "What kind of story?" "The kind that could change Formula One forever. But I need someone I trust to help me tell it properly." Sarah was quiet for a moment. "Lewis, you sound serious. What's this about? Can we meet somewhere private? What I'm about to share with you will shock you." "When and where?" Lewis looked at the briefcase full of evidence sitting on his table. "Tomorrow." "And Sarah? Come prepared for the story of a lifetime." As Lewis hung up the phone, he realized there was no going back now. He was committed to exposing the truth, no matter what it cost him. The fight for justice was about to begin. Lewis Hamilton woke up to find an envelope slipped under his apartment door. His name was written on the front in block letters, but there was no return address. His hands shook as he opened it. Inside was a single piece of paper with a message typed in large, bold letters. "Stop digging or face the consequences. You have 48 hours." Lewis dropped the paper and stepped away from it, as if it might explode. Someone had been inside his building. Someone knew where he lived. Someone was watching his every move. He picked up his phone and called Rebecca immediately. "They threatened me," Lewis said without saying hello. "Someone left a warning at my door." "Lewis, you need to call the police right now." "And tell them what?" "That I'm investigating corruption in Formula One and someone wants me to stop?" "They'll think I'm crazy." "Then what are you going to do?" Lewis looked at the briefcase full of evidence sitting on his dining table. 3 weeks of investigation. Proof of the biggest scandal in sports history. And now someone wanted to scare him into silence. "I'm going to keep fighting, but I need to be smarter about it." That afternoon, Lewis was supposed to meet Sarah Chun at a quiet restaurant in London. But as he was getting ready to leave Monaco, his phone rang. It was Toto Wolff, his team principal at Mercedes. "Lewis, we need to talk. The FIA has scheduled an unexpected technical inspection of our cars for tomorrow." "Why?" "We just passed inspection last week. They say it's a random check, but the timing is strange. They want to examine every component of your car specifically." Lewis felt his stomach drop. The FIA was putting pressure on his team because of his investigation. "Toto, this isn't random. They're trying to send me a message." "What kind of message?" "Lewis, what's going on?" Lewis couldn't tell Toto about the documents. Not yet. It would put the entire Mercedes team at risk. "Just be careful, Toto, and make sure our cars are perfect. Don't give them any reason to find problems." 2 hours later, Lewis received another phone call. This time it was from Daniel Ricciardo. "Lewis, something weird happened today. My manager got a call from someone claiming to be from the FIA. They asked about our conversation last week." "What did your manager tell them?" "Nothing, because he didn't know what they were talking about." "But Lewis, how did they know we talked? Are they listening to our phone calls?" Lewis realized that his investigation had put Daniel in danger too. The corruption network was bigger and more powerful than he had imagined. Danny, I need you to be very careful. Don't talk to anyone about racing decisions or the FIA. And if anyone contacts you again, call me immediately. Lewis's flight to London was delayed by 3 hours due to mechanical problems. When he finally arrived, he noticed the same black sedan from Monaco parked outside the airport. He was definitely being followed. Sarah Chun was waiting for him at the restaurant, but she looked worried. Lewis, something strange happened after you called me yesterday. My editor received a phone call from someone high up in the FIA. They asked if I was working on any stories about race officials. What did your editor say? He said no, because I hadn't told him about our meeting yet. But Lewis, how did they know to call? Lewis sat down across from Sarah and spoke in a quiet voice. Because they're watching everything I do. Every call I make. Every person I talk to. They know I'm investigating them. Sarah looked around the restaurant nervously. Are we safe here? I don't know, but we need to talk fast. Lewis opened his briefcase and showed Sarah some of the documents. He watched her face change as she read the emails and listened to the recording from Abu Dhabi. This is incredible, Sarah whispered. This proves that your championship was stolen. But Lewis, if this information is real, these people will do anything to stop you from revealing it. I know. That's why I need your help. I can't do this alone. Sarah studied the documents more carefully. These emails, these phone records, they're all real. I verified everything. The phone numbers match FIA officials. The dates match key events from 2021. The recording is authentic. But Lewis, if we publish this story, it will destroy Formula One as we know it. Fans will lose faith in the sport. Sponsors will pull out. People will lose their jobs. Lewis looked at Sarah with determination in his eyes. And if we don't publish it, the corruption will continue. More drivers will be cheated. More championships will be stolen. The sport will remain a lie. Sarah was quiet for a long moment, thinking about the decision. What's your plan? We reveal everything at the British Grand Prix press conference. My home race. Maximum media attention. You publish the detailed investigation at the same time. That's in 2 weeks. Can we prepare everything by then? We have to. I don't think we have much more time before they find a way to stop us. As Lewis and Sarah were leaving the restaurant, Sarah grabbed his arm. Lewis, there's something I need to tell you. Yesterday, after you called me, I tried to contact Marcus Weatherby to verify his story. What did you find? Nothing. It's like he never existed. No employment records with the FIA. No home address. No phone number. Marcus Weatherby has completely disappeared. Lewis felt a chill run down his spine. What do you mean, disappeared? I mean, there's no trace of him anywhere. Either he's very good at hiding, or what? Sarah's voice became very quiet, or something happened to him. That night, Lewis couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Marcus, the old man who had risked everything to give him the truth. Was Marcus hiding somewhere, scared for his life? Or had the people behind the corruption silenced him permanently? Lewis's phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Marcus Weatherby is safe. For now, stop your investigation or he won't remain that way. Lewis stared at the message in horror. They had Marcus. The threats weren't just about Lewis anymore. They were about an innocent man who had tried to do the right thing. Lewis called Rebecca immediately, even though it was past midnight. They have Marcus, Lewis said when she answered. They're threatening to hurt him if I don't stop. Lewis, this has gone too far. These people are criminals. You need to go to the police. And say what? That a man who officially doesn't exist gave me documents that prove corruption? The police will think I'm making it all up. Then what are you going to do? Lewis looked at the briefcase full of evidence. The truth that could change everything. The proof that his championship had been stolen. I'm going to keep fighting, but I need to find Marcus first. Lewis, that's dangerous. If these people are willing to kidnap someone, they might be willing to do worse. I can't abandon Marcus. He risked everything to help me. I won't let him suffer because of my investigation. The next morning, Lewis received a phone call from his father, Anthony. Son, I got a strange visit yesterday. 2 men in suits came to my house asking about you. Lewis felt his blood turn cold. What did they want? They said they were from some sports organization. They asked if you had been acting strangely lately. If you had been talking about conspiracy theories. What did you tell them? I told them to get off my property. But Lewis, I'm worried. These men didn't seem like normal sports officials. They seemed dangerous. Lewis realized that his family was now being threatened. His investigation had put everyone he cared about at risk. "Dad, I need you and Mom to be very careful. Don't talk to any strangers. Don't answer questions about me. And if anything unusual happens, call me immediately." After hanging up, Lewis sat in his apartment feeling the weight of responsibility. Marcus was missing. His friend Ryan had lost his job. His family was being threatened. His team was under pressure, but Lewis also knew that backing down now would mean the corruption would continue forever. Future drivers would be cheated. The sport would remain controlled by people who cared more about money than fairness. Lewis made a decision that would change everything. He picked up his phone and called Sarah Chun. "Sarah, I need your help with something bigger than just the story." "What do you mean?" "I need your contacts in the media. I need your reputation for honest reporting. And I need your courage." "For what?" Lewis looked at the threatening message on his phone, then at the briefcase full of evidence. "I'm about to expose the biggest scandal in Formula One history at the British Grand Prix press conference. But I need someone I trust to help me survive what comes next." "Lewis, are you sure about this? These people have shown they're willing to hurt innocent people." "I'm sure. Because Marcus risked everything to give me this information. Because my family shouldn't have to live in fear. Because the sport I love deserves better." Sarah was quiet for a moment. "What do you need me to do?" "Help me find Marcus. Help me prepare the revelation. And help me make sure the truth gets out, no matter what they do to try to stop us." "When do we start?" Lewis looked at his calendar. The British Grand Prix was 12 days away. "We start now. Because we're running out of time, and Marcus is running out of time." Lewis hung up the phone and began planning the most important fight of his life. The corruption network thought they could scare him into silence. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Lewis Hamilton and Sarah Chun met at a small coffee shop in a quiet part of London. They chose a table in the back corner where no one could hear their conversation. Lewis had learned to be careful about who might be listening. "I've been thinking about your idea all night," Sarah said, stirring sugar into her coffee. "If we're really going to do this at the British Grand Prix, we need to plan every detail perfectly." Lewis opened his laptop and showed Sarah a document he had been working on. "I've written down everything we need to do. The press conference is scheduled for Friday afternoon. That gives us 10 days to prepare." Sarah read through Lewis's notes. "This is good, but we need more than just the documents you have. If you're going to accuse the FIA of corruption in front of the world media, we need proof that no one can question." "What kind of proof?" "We need the smoking gun. The one piece of evidence that proves everything beyond any doubt." Lewis thought about the documents Marcus had given him. The emails were damning. The phone records showed coordination. The recording from race control was shocking. But Sarah was right. They needed something even stronger. "Marcus mentioned something during our meeting," Lewis said. "He talked about a recording from the actual Abu Dhabi race. A conversation between race control and FIA officials that was never made public." Sarah's eyes lit up. "If we could find that recording, it would be undeniable proof. But how do we find it? Marcus is missing, and I don't even know where to start looking." Sarah pulled out her own laptop and began typing. "I've been investigating the FIA's computer systems. All race communications are stored on secure servers. If that recording exists, it's probably at the Yas Marina circuit in Abu Dhabi." Lewis stared at her. "Are you suggesting we break into their servers?" "I'm suggesting we find someone who already has access to them." Sarah showed Lewis her screen. She had been researching FIA employees, looking for people who might be willing to help expose the corruption. "Look at this," Sarah said, pointing to a profile on her screen. "Priya Sharma. She's a data analyst who works for the FIA. She's young, idealistic, and according to my sources, she's been asking uncomfortable questions about race procedures. You think she would help us?" "I think she might already know about the corruption and be looking for a way to expose it herself." Lewis studied Priya's profile. She was 26 years old, had a computer science degree, and had been working for the FIA for 2 years. Her social media posts showed she cared deeply about fairness in sports. "How do we contact her without putting her in danger?" Sarah smiled. "Leave that to me. I have ways of reaching people quietly." While Sarah worked on contacting Priya, Lewis focused on preparing his statement for the press conference. He wanted to make sure every word was perfect, every accusation was backed by evidence. That afternoon, Lewis received a call from Rebecca, His lawyer. Lewis, I have some disturbing news. I've been researching the people mentioned in your documents, and I've discovered something troubling. What did you find? Some of these FIA officials have connections to organized crime. Financial links to people who are known for making problems disappear. Lewis felt his stomach drop. What are you saying? I'm saying that these aren't just corrupt sports officials. Some of them are connected to very dangerous people. People who won't hesitate to use violence to protect their interests. Lewis thought about Marcus, who was still missing, about the threats to his family, about his friend Ryan losing his job. Rebecca, are you telling me I should give up? I'm telling you that if you continue with this investigation, you need to be prepared for anything. These people have already shown they're willing to threaten and intimidate. They might be willing to do worse. That evening, Sarah called Lewis with good news. I made contact with Priya Sharma. She wants to meet with us. Is she willing to help? More than willing. Lewis, she's been collecting evidence of corruption for months. She's just been waiting for someone brave enough to help her expose it. They arranged to meet Priya the next day at a hotel in London. When Lewis saw her, he was struck by how young she looked. She seemed nervous but determined. Mr. Hamilton, Priya said, shaking his hand, I can't believe I'm actually meeting you. I've been a fan since I was a child. Please, call me Lewis. And thank you for agreeing to help us. Priya opened her laptop and showed them files she had copied from FIA servers. I've been documenting suspicious activities for 8 months, she said. Strange phone calls during races. Unusual changes to procedures. Financial transfers that don't make sense. Lewis looked at the files. They contained even more evidence than Marcus had given him. This is incredible, Sarah said. With this information, plus what Lewis already has, we can prove systematic corruption going back years. But there's something else, Priya said, lowering her voice. I found the recording you're looking for. The conversation from Abu Dhabi race control. Lewis's heart started beating faster. You have it. It's stored on a secure server at the Yas Marina circuit. But I can access it remotely if I'm careful. It's safe for you to do that? Priya looked scared but determined. Mr. Hamilton, when I started working for the FIA, I thought I was joining an organization that cared about fair racing. Instead, I discovered a system designed to cheat drivers and fans. I can't stay silent about that. What do you need from us? I need to know that when I get you this recording, you'll use it to expose the truth, no matter what it costs. Lewis looked at this brave young woman who was risking her career to help him seek justice. Priya, I promise you that the truth will come out. At the British Grand Prix press conference, I'm going to reveal everything. Priya nodded and began typing on her laptop. Then let's get you that recording. For the next hour, Lewis and Sarah watched as Priya carefully navigated the FIA's security systems. She moved through layers of passwords and encryption like an expert. Almost there, she whispered. I'm accessing the Abu Dhabi race control archives now. Lewis held his breath as Priya searched through files from December 2021. Found it, she said suddenly. The complete recording from race control during the safety car period. The conversation that was classified and never released. She downloaded the file and played it through her laptop speakers. Lewis heard voices he recognized, but also new. Voices he had never heard before. The recording was even more damning than the one Marcus had given him. It showed clear coordination between multiple FIA officials and external parties. It proved that the Abu Dhabi decision was not just planned, but was part of a larger scheme to control championship outcomes. This is it, Sarah said in amazement. This is the smoking gun we needed. But as Priya was copying the file to a secure drive, her laptop screen suddenly went black. What happened? Lewis asked. Priya's face went pale. Someone detected my access. They've cut my connection and locked my account. Are you in trouble? More than trouble. They know I accessed classified files. They'll trace it back to me within hours. Lewis realized that Priya had sacrificed her job and possibly her safety to help him get the evidence he needed. Priya, I'm sorry. I didn't want to put you at risk. It's okay, Mr. Hamilton. Some things are more important than job security. Did we get the complete recording? Sarah checked the secure drive. Yes, we have everything. Priya closed her laptop and looked at Lewis with determination. Mr. Hamilton, you now have enough evidence to prove that your championship was stolen and that the FIA has been corrupt for years. But they know someone is preparing to expose them. You need to move fast. How fast? The British Grand Prix is in 9 days. But after what just happened, they'll be expecting you to make your move there. They'll be prepared to stop you. Lewis thought about all the evidence they had collected. The emails, the phone records, the financial documents, and now the complete recording from Abu Dhabi. It was enough to change Formula One forever. Then we surprised them, Lewis said. We don't wait for the scheduled press conference. We move earlier. When? Sarah asked. Lewis looked at his phone. Messages from his team about practice sessions. Emails about media obligations. Reminders about the British Grand Prix weekend schedule. Tomorrow. We do it tomorrow. Sarah stared at him. Lewis, that's impossible. We need time to prepare the media, to organize the presentation, to make sure everything is perfect. Sarah, if we wait any longer, they'll find a way to stop us. They might hurt Marcus. They might threaten more innocent people. We have the evidence we need. Tomorrow, I tell the world the truth. Priya gathered her things and prepared to leave. Mr. Hamilton, when you reveal this information, it will change your life forever. Are you ready for that? Lewis thought about Abu Dhabi, about his stolen championship, about Marcus risking everything to help him, about young drivers who deserve to compete in a fair sport. I've been ready for 4 years, Lewis said. It's time for justice. As Priya left the hotel, Lewis and Sarah began planning the most important press conference in Formula One history. They had less than 24 hours to prepare for a revelation that would shock the world. The truth was finally coming out, and nothing would ever be the same. Lewis Hamilton woke up at 4 a.m. with his phone buzzing. Sarah Chun was calling with urgent news. Lewis, we have a problem. I just got a call from my editor. Someone leaked information about our investigation to other journalists. The story is starting to spread. Lewis sat up in bed, instantly awake. What do you mean? People are asking questions about you and the FIA, about secret documents, about corruption allegations. Our plan to surprise them tomorrow isn't going to work anymore. Lewis felt his heart sink. After all their careful planning, someone had revealed their investigation before they were ready. Who could have leaked it? I don't know. But Lewis, we need to move even faster than we planned. If the FIA knows we're coming, they'll prepare their defense. They might destroy evidence. They might silence witnesses. Lewis looked at his suitcase, packed for the trip to Abu Dhabi. After getting the recording from Priya yesterday, he had made a decision that surprised even himself. Sarah, I'm not waiting for tomorrow. I'm going to Abu Dhabi today. What? What? Because that's where this all started. That's where the evidence is stored. And that's where I think they're keeping Marcus. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Lewis, that's incredibly dangerous. If they have Marcus prisoner in Abu Dhabi, walking into their territory is like walking into a trap. Maybe, but it's also the last place they'll expect me to go. They think I'm in London preparing for a press conference. They won't be watching for me in Abu Dhabi. 3 hours later, Lewis was on a private jet heading to the Middle East. He had told no one except Sarah about his real destination. As far as anyone knew, he was still in London. During the flight, Lewis studied maps of the Yas Marina circuit. Priya had given him detailed information about the FIA offices and server rooms at the track. If Marcus was being held anywhere, it would be in a secure location near the race control center. When Lewis landed in Abu Dhabi, he rented a car using a fake name and drove toward the circuit. The desert heat reminded him of that terrible December night in 2021 when his championship dreams were stolen. But this time, he wasn't here to race. He was here to find the truth. Lewis met Priya at a small hotel near the circuit. She looked nervous and tired, like she hadn't slept in days. Mr. Hamilton, I can't believe you actually came here. When I got your message, I thought you were crazy. Maybe. I am crazy. But I need to find Marcus, and I need to get that complete recording from the servers. I've been thinking about this all night, Priya said, opening her laptop. The recording we downloaded yesterday was just a copy. The original file, with all the metadata and verification codes, is still on the main server here at the circuit. Can you access it? Yes, but I'll need to physically connect to the server. Remote access is too risky now that they know someone has been in their system. Lewis studied the circuit layout on Priya's screen. Where are the servers located? In the basement of the main building, right below the race control center. But Lewis, the security there is very tight. Cameras, guards, access cards required for every door. What about Marcus? Any idea where they might be keeping him? Priya pointed to a section of the building that Lewis had never seen before. There are offices in the back that most people don't know about. Private meeting rooms that the FIA uses for sensitive discussions. If they're holding someone, it would be there. Lewis looked at the building layout and made his plan. We go. And tonight, during the evening shift change, security will be distracted and there will be fewer people around. Lewis, if we get caught, they'll know we have all the evidence. They might destroy everything and disappear. And if we don't try, Marcus might disappear forever. That evening, Lewis and Priya approached the Yas Marina circuit from the back entrance. Lewis had changed his appearance as much as possible. Different clothes, a baseball cap pulled low, glasses he didn't usually wear. Priya used her access card to get them through the first security door. Her hands were shaking as she swiped the card. This is the last time this card will work, she whispered. After tonight, they'll deactivate my access to everything. They moved carefully through the building, avoiding the main corridors where security cameras were most active. Lewis felt like he was in a spy movie, but the danger was very real. The basement server room was exactly where Priya had said it would be. Row after row of computer equipment, humming quietly in the air-conditioned space. There, Priya pointed to a specific server tower. That's where the race control recordings are stored. While Priya worked on accessing the server, Lewis searched the basement for any sign of Marcus. He found storage rooms, equipment closets, and utility areas, but no people. Got it, Priya whispered. I'm downloading the complete Abu Dhabi file now, plus recordings from other races that show the same pattern of manipulation. As the files transferred to Priya's portable drive, Lewis heard footsteps above them. Someone was walking around the main floor of the building. How much longer? Lewis asked. 5 more minutes. The footsteps got louder. Someone was coming toward the basement stairs. Lewis looked around the server room for places to hide. If security found them here, their investigation would be over before it really began. 3 more minutes, Priya whispered, watching the download progress. The basement door opened. Lewis and Priya crouched behind a large server tower, trying to stay as quiet as possible that a security guard walked into the room, shining a flashlight around the equipment. Lewis held his breath as the light swept past their hiding spot. The guard walked slowly through the server room, checking each row of equipment. Lewis could hear his footsteps getting closer to where they were hiding. Download complete, Priya whispered, so quietly that Lewis could barely hear her. She carefully disconnected her drive from the server, trying not to make any noise. The security guard's radio crackled. Ahmed, anything unusual in the basement? No, sir. Everything looks normal down here. Good. Finish your rounds and report back. The guard walked toward the exit, but stopped right next to the server tower where Lewis and Priya were hiding. Lewis could see the man's shoes just inches from his face. After what felt like forever, the guard continued walking and left the basement. Lewis and Priya waited another 5 minutes before moving. When they were sure the guard was gone, they made their way toward the exit. But as they reached the basement stairs, Lewis heard something that made him stop. A voice coming from somewhere else in the building. A voice that sounded familiar. That's Marcus, Lewis whispered. I'm sure of it. Priya grabbed his arm. Lewis, we have what we came for. The recordings will prove everything. We should leave now before security comes back. I can't leave Marcus. He risked everything to help me. I won't abandon him. Lewis followed the sound of the voice down a corridor he hadn't explored before. At the end of the hall was a door marked Private, Authorized Personnel Only. Lewis pressed his ear to the door and heard Marcus's voice clearly now. He was talking to someone, but Lewis couldn't hear the other person's response. He's in there, Lewis told Priya. We have to get him out. Lewis, that door probably has an alarm. If we open it, security will know immediately. Lewis looked at the door, then at Priya's portable drive containing all the evidence they needed to expose the corruption. He had to make a choice. He could leave now with the proof that would destroy the FIA's corrupt leadership, or he could risk everything to save the man who had made it all possible. Priya, take the drive and get out of here. Go back to London and give the files to Sarah. Make sure the world sees this evidence. What about you? Lewis looked at the door one more time. I'm getting Marcus out of here. Lewis, this is suicide. If they catch you, they'll destroy the evidence and claim you were never here. Then make sure that doesn't happen. Get those files to Sarah tonight. Promise me. Priya looked at Lewis with tears in her eyes. I promise. As Priya disappeared down the corridor toward the exit, Lewis prepared to open the door and face whatever was waiting inside. He thought about Abu Dhabi 2021, about his stolen championship, about 4 years of carrying the pain of injustice. Tonight, one way or another, it would all be over. Lewis reached for the door handle, knowing that what happened next would change his life forever. Lewis Hamilton turned the door handle slowly. His heart was beating so loud, he was sure someone would hear it. The door opened without any alarm, and Lewis stepped into a small room with no windows. Marcus Weatherby was sitting in a chair in the middle of the room, but he wasn't tied up or hurt. In fact, he looked completely calm. When he saw Lewis, Marcus smiled. Hello, Lewis. I've been expecting you. Lewis stared in confusion. Marcus? Are you okay? I thought you were kidnapped. Kidnapped? Marcus laughed softly. No, Lewis. I'm exactly where I need to be. Before Lewis could ask what Marcus meant, the lights in the room got brighter. Lewis turned around and saw 3 men in expensive suits standing behind him. One of them was holding the door closed. Mr. Hamilton, said the tallest man, please sit down. We need to have a conversation. Lewis looked at Marcus, then at the men blocking his exit. Who are you? We're the people who have been watching your investigation for the past month. And we're here to make you an offer. Lewis remained standing. What kind of offer? The tall man walked closer to Lewis. The kind that will make you very rich and very quiet about certain FIA matters. You want to bribe me? We want to help you understand the bigger picture, Lewis. The corruption you think you've discovered, it's not what you believe it is. Lewis looked at Marcus again. Marcus, what's going on? Why aren't you trying to escape? Marcus stood up from his chair and walked over to Lewis. Because I'm not a prisoner, Lewis. I never was. Lewis felt like the world was spinning around him. What do you mean? I mean that everything I told you was true, but not complete. Yes, there was corruption in the FIA. Yes, your championship was stolen, but the people responsible aren't the ones you think they are. The tall man opened a briefcase and pulled out more documents. Lewis, what if I told you that the corruption Marcus exposed was just one small part of a much larger operation? An operation to clean up Formula One. Lewis stared at the new documents. I don't understand. The officials who stole your championship were part of a criminal network that had been controlling F1 results for years. But there were good people inside the FIA who were working to stop them. Marcus nodded. Lewis, I wasn't just collecting evidence of corruption. I was working undercover for an international investigation into sports manipulation. Lewis felt dizzy. You're saying you're some kind of undercover agent. I'm saying that the people who appeared to be corrupt were actually trying to expose the real criminals. And your investigation has helped us gather the final evidence we needed. The tall man showed Lewis photos of people he didn't recognize. These are the real criminals, Lewis. They've been fixing sports results around the world for profit. The FIA officials you think are corrupt were actually working with law enforcement to catch them. Lewis sat down in the chair Marcus had been using. His mind was trying to process everything he was hearing. So the Abu Dhabi race was indeed manipulated, Marcus said. But not by the people you thought. The real criminals wanted Max to win because they had placed huge bets on that outcome. The FIA officials were trying to follow normal procedures, but they were overruled by people with more power. Lewis looked at the documents the tall man had given him. They showed a complex network of gambling operations, money laundering, and race fixing that went far beyond Formula One. Why didn't you tell me this from the beginning? Marcus sat down across from Lewis. Because we needed your genuine reaction. Lewis, we needed you to investigate naturally, to ask questions, to gather evidence. If you had known the truth, your behavior would have been different. You used me. We gave you the chance to seek justice. And Lewis, the justice is real. The people who stole your championship are going to prison. The tall man closed his briefcase. Lewis, tomorrow morning, arrests will be made around the world. The criminal network that has been corrupting sports for decades will be destroyed. Lewis thought about all the anger he had carried for 4 years, all the pain of losing his 8th championship, all the nights he couldn't sleep because of the injustice. What about my championship? What about Abu Dhabi? Marcus smiled. Lewis, as of tonight, the 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix result has been officially overturned. You are now recognized as the 2021 world champion. Lewis felt tears starting to form in his eyes. Really, really, your 8th championship is official. It always should have been yours. One of the other men, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. But Lewis, we need your help with something important. What? We need you to appear at a press conference tomorrow to announce the arrests and the championship correction. The world needs to hear from you that justice has been served. Lewis wiped his eyes and looked around the room. What about Priya? What about Sarah? They think I'm in danger. Marcus pulled out his phone. I'll call them both right now. They need to know that you're safe and that the investigation is over. As Marcus made the phone calls, Lewis tried to understand everything that had happened. His investigation had been real. The corruption had been real. But the people he thought were his enemies had actually been working to help him get justice. There's one more thing, Lewis, the tall man said. The press conference tomorrow, it's going to be at Silverstone, at your home track, in front of the British fans who have supported you throughout your career. Lewis looked up. Tomorrow is supposed to be the British Grand Prix weekend. It still is. But now it will also be the day you officially receive your 8th championship. The day justice is served. Marcus finished his phone calls and sat back down. Sarah and Priya are on their way to London. They'll meet us there tomorrow morning. Lewis stood up and walked to the door. The men who had been blocking it moved aside. Lewis, Marcus called after him. Are you ready to face the world tomorrow? To tell them that the truth has finally come out? Lewis turned back to look at Marcus, this strange old man who had started everything with a phone call, who had given him the chance to seek justice, even if not in the way Lewis had expected. Marcus, I have one question. What's that? Are you really dying of cancer? Marcus laughed. No, Lewis. That was part of my cover story. I'm actually in perfect health. Lewis shook his head in amazement. This whole thing has been like a movie. The best movies are the ones where the good guys win in the end, Marcus said. And tomorrow, Lewis, you're going to win. As Lewis left the room and walked back through the Yas Marina circuit, he thought about the past month of investigation. The fear, the anger, the determination to seek truth. All of it had led to this moment. Justice was finally coming. His phone buzzed with a text message from Sarah. Lewis, Marcus called. I can't believe what he told me. You did it. You actually did it. Lewis smiled as he walked out into the Abu Dhabi night. Tomorrow, he would stand in front of the world and announce that his 8th championship had been restored. Tomorrow, the truth would set him free. The race against time was over. And Lewis Hamilton had won. Lewis Hamilton stood outside the Silverstone Media Center, listening to the roar of the British crowd. Thousands of fans were singing his name, waving flags, and celebrating what they thought was just another race weekend. They had no idea they were about to witness the most important moment in Formula One history. Sarah Chun walked up beside him, holding a thick folder of documents. Lewis, are you ready for this? Lewis looked at the media center doors. Inside, every major journalist in the world was waiting. Television cameras from dozens of countries were set up. The internet was buzzing with rumors about a major announcement. From Lewis Hamilton. I've been ready for 4 years, Lewis said quietly. Rebecca Martinez, his lawyer, joined them at the entrance. Lewis, I want you to know that this press conference will change everything. After today, Formula One will never be the same. Lewis nodded. Good. It's time for the sport to be what it should have been all along. As they walked into the media center, Lewis saw familiar faces in the crowd. Journalists who had covered his entire career. Photographers who had captured his wins and losses. Television reporters who would broadcast his words around the world. But Lewis also saw new faces. Law enforcement officers standing quietly at the back of the room. International investigators who had been working on the corruption case for years. Representatives from sporting organizations around the world. Lewis took his seat at the front table. The room fell completely silent. Every camera was focused on his face. Every microphone was turned on. Lewis looked out at the crowd and began to speak. 4 years ago, on December 12, 2021, I lost the Formula One World Championship in Abu Dhabi. I went to sleep that night believing that I had been the victim of poor officiating, a bad decision made under pressure. The room was so quiet that Lewis could hear his own heartbeat. I was wrong. What happened in Abu Dhabi wasn't poor officiating. It was crime. Cameras flashed like lightning. Journalists started whispering to each other. Lewis continued, For the past month, I have been investigating corruption in Formula One. What I discovered shocked me. What I'm about to reveal will shock all of you. Lewis opened the folder in front of him and pulled out the first document. This is an email from December 10th, 2021, 2 days before the Abu Dhabi race. It shows coordination between criminal organizations and certain individuals who had influence over race outcomes. Lewis read portions of the email aloud. The room erupted in gasps and shouting questions. "Order! Let him finish," called out the moderator. Lewis continued, methodically presenting evidence. Phone records showing coordination between criminals and corrupt officials. Financial documents proving money changed hands. Recording devices that captured conversations about fixing race results. "The people who stole my championship weren't just corrupt sports officials," Lewis said. "They were part of an international criminal network that has been manipulating sports results for profit." Sarah Chin stood up from her seat in the audience. As planned, she asked the key question, "Lewis, how do you know all this evidence is real?" Lewis looked directly at the main television camera. "Because for the past 2 years, international law enforcement has been investigating this criminal network. And this morning, arrests were made in 12 countries." The room exploded. Journalists started shouting questions. Phones were ringing as news editors called for updates. Television producers were frantically updating their breaking news graphics. Lewis held up his hand for quiet. "But that's not the most important news I have to share today." The room settled down slightly, though the energy was electric. This morning, the FIA officially overturned the result of the 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. "I am now officially recognized as the 2021 Formula One World Champion." Lewis had to stop talking because the noise in the room was deafening. British journalists were cheering. International reporters were struggling to be heard over their phone calls. Photographers were capturing every expression on Lewis's face. When the room finally quieted, Lewis continued, "This is my 8th world championship. It should have been mine 4 years ago, but justice doesn't always come quickly." A journalist from Germany raised her hand. "Lewis, how do you feel knowing that you were cheated for 4 years?" Lewis thought about all the sleepless nights, all the anger and frustration, all the moments when he questioned whether he was good enough. "I feel sad for the sport I love. I feel angry that fans were lied to. But I also feel hope that we can build something better." James Murphy from Sky Sports asked, "What happens to Formula One now?" "Formula One will continue," Lewis said. "But it will be run by people who care about fairness, not profit. People who believe that the best driver should win, not the driver who creates the best television drama." Lewis looked around the room at all the faces staring at him. "I want to thank everyone who helped expose this corruption. Journalists who asked hard questions. Officials who risked their careers to do the right thing. Fans who never stopped believing in fair competition." A young journalist Lewis didn't recognize raised her hand. "What will you do with your 8th championship?" Lewis smiled for the first time during the press conference. "I'm going to race for my 9th. The room erupted in laughter and applause. For a moment, the tension broke and everyone remembered why they loved Formula One in the first place. But Lewis wasn't finished yet. He had one more revelation that would complete his story. "There's something else you all need to know," Lewis said, and the room went quiet again. "The investigation that led to these arrests didn't start with me. It started with a brave man who risked everything to seek justice." Lewis gestured toward the back of the room. "Marcus Weatherby, would you please join me up here?" Marcus walked through the crowd of journalists toward the front of the room. But he looked different than he had in Geneva. Healthier, stronger, more confident. Marcus has been working undercover for international law enforcement for 2 years. Lewis explained. "He contacted me not because he was dying and wanted to clear his conscience, but because investigators needed my help to gather the final evidence." The journalists were frantically taking notes. This story was getting bigger by the minute. Marcus took the microphone. Lewis Hamilton showed incredible courage in pursuing this investigation. He risked his career, his reputation, and his safety to seek truth and justice. Marcus looked directly at Lewis. But the most important thing Lewis did was refuse to give up. Even when he was threatened, even when people he cared about were put in danger, he never stopped fighting for what was right. Lewis felt tears starting to form in his eyes. Not tears of sadness, but tears of relief. The weight he had been carrying for 4 years was finally lifted. That a journalist from France asked, What message does this send to other sports that might have similar corruption? Lewis took back the microphone. It sends the message that truth always comes out eventually. It might take time, but justice will be served. Lewis stood up from his chair and looked around the room one final time. I came here today to tell you about corruption and crime and injustice, but I'm leaving here with a message of hope. He picked up his folder and prepared to leave. Formula One is going to be better. Sports are going to be more fair, and young drivers around the world can race knowing that their dreams won't be stolen by criminals. As Lewis walked toward the exit, every person in the room stood up and applauded. British journalists were cheering. International reporters were clapping. Even the law enforcement officers were smiling. Lewis stopped at the door and turned back to the crowd. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring about the truth. And thank you for reminding me why I fell in love with racing in the first place. Outside the media center, Lewis could hear the British crowd still singing his name. But now they weren't just celebrating a driver. They were celebrating justice. Lewis Hamilton walked out into the Silverstone sunshine, officially an 8-time world champion, knowing that he had changed Formula One forever. The truth was out, and the sport he loved was finally free. Lewis Hamilton walked out of the Silverstone Media Center and stopped. The roar of the British crowd was deafening. Thousands of fans were cheering, but their cheers sounded different now. They weren't just celebrating a driver anymore. They were celebrating justice. Sarah Chen caught up with Lewis as he stood in the sunshine, looking overwhelmed by everything that had just happened. Lewis, how does it feel? She asked. You've just changed Formula One forever. Lewis looked at Sarah, then at the crowd of fans singing his name. It feels like I can finally breathe again. Like a weight I've been carrying for 4 years has been lifted off my shoulders. A group of young fans ran up to Lewis, holding British flags and wearing Mercedes shirts. One little girl, maybe 8 years old, tugged on Lewis's sleeve. Mr. Hamilton, are you really the champion 8 times now? Lewis knelt down to the girl's level and smiled. Yes, I am. And do you know what that means? The little girl shook her head. It means that if you work hard and never give up, even when bad things happen, good things will come to you eventually. The girl's mother had tears in her eyes. Thank you, Lewis. Thank you for fighting for what's right. As Lewis signed autographs for the children, Rebecca Martinez approached him with her phone. Lewis, I've been getting calls from around the world. The arrests are making international news. 13 people have been taken into custody so far, including some very powerful individuals. Lewis looked up from signing a young boy's hat. What about the people who were wrongly accused? The FIA officials who were actually trying to help. They're being cleared of all charges. In fact, several of them are being promoted to leadership positions to help rebuild the organization. Marcus Weatherby joined them, looking relieved that his 2-year undercover mission was finally over. Lewis, I owe you an apology, Marcus said. I know it was difficult for you to go through this investigation without knowing the complete truth. Lewis stood up and shook Marcus's hand. You don't owe me anything, Marcus. You gave me the chance to seek justice. That's all I ever wanted. But I put you through emotional pain. I let you believe you were fighting this battle alone. Lewis thought about the past month. The sleepless nights. The anger. The fear for his family's safety. The determination to expose corruption even when it seemed impossible. Marcus, that pain was necessary. If I had known it was all part of a law enforcement operation, I wouldn't have fought as hard. I wouldn't have been as motivated to seek the truth. A journalist from CNN approached them with a camera crew. Mr. Hamilton, can you tell us what this means for Formula One's future? Lewis looked directly into the camera. It means that young drivers around the world can pursue their dreams, knowing that the sport is fair. It means that fans can watch races knowing that the best driver will win. It means that Formula One can be what it was always supposed to be, the pinnacle of motorsport. The journalist continued, what about your own future? You're now officially an 8-time world champion. Will you continue racing? Lewis smiled. I'm not done yet. I still have more championships to win. But now I can compete knowing that I'll win or lose based on my own performance, not on decisions made in secret meetings. As the interviews continued, Lewis noticed Priya Sharma standing nearby, looking nervous about approaching him. Lewis walked over to her. Priya, you risked everything to help expose this corruption. How are you doing? Priya's eyes filled with tears. Mr. Hamilton, I lost my job with the FIA, but I gained something more important. I can sleep at night knowing I did the right thing." Actually, Marcus interrupted. "Priya, I have some good news for you. The new FIA leadership wants to offer you a position heading their new transparency and ethics department." Priya's mouth dropped open. "Really? Really? They need someone they can trust to make sure this kind of corruption never happens again." Lewis watched as Priya started crying tears of joy. Another person whose courage had been rewarded. As the afternoon went on, Lewis received calls from drivers around the world. Daniel Ricciardo called to congratulate him. Sebastian Vettel called to say he was proud of Lewis's courage. Even Max Verstappen called to acknowledge that Lewis deserved the 2021 championship. "I always felt something was wrong about that race," Max said. "I'm glad the truth came out. You earned that title, Lewis." Lewis's parents, Anthony and Carmen, arrived at Silverstone that evening. His father hugged him tightly. "Son, I've never been more proud of you, not for your driving, but for your courage." His mother was crying as she held him. "Lewis, you could have been hurt. You could have lost everything. Why did you take such a risk?" Lewis looked at his mother with love in his eyes. "Mom, remember when I was a kid and you taught me to always stand up for what's right, even when it's hard?" Carmen nodded through her tears. "This was me standing up for what's right. For myself, for other drivers, for the fans, for the sport I love." That evening, Lewis stood alone on the Silverstone track where he had won his first British Grand Prix so many years ago. The circuit was empty now, quiet except for the wind blowing across the tarmac. Sarah Chin found him there as the sun was setting. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "I'm thinking about the little boy who started racing go-karts because he loved the feeling of going fast. I'm thinking about how he dreamed of being a Formula One champion someday." Lewis looked at the finish line where he had celebrated so many victories. That little boy never imagined he would have to fight criminals and corruption to protect his sport. But he also never imagined he would have the chance to make Formula One better for future generations. Sarah sat down beside Lewis on the track. "Do you think it was worth it? All the stress, all the danger, all the uncertainty." Lewis pulled out his phone and showed Sarah a video that had been posted online. It was the little girl from earlier that day, telling her friends that Lewis Hamilton had taught her to never give up when bad things happen. "Yes," Lewis said quietly. "It was worth it." The next morning, Lewis woke up in his own bed for the first time in weeks without feeling angry about Abu Dhabi 2021. The weight of injustice was gone. The pain of having his championship stolen was healed. He was officially an 8-time world champion. The corruption that had poisoned Formula One was exposed and destroyed. The sport he loved was free to be fair again. Lewis picked up his phone and called his team at Mercedes. "Toto, it's Lewis. Are you ready to go racing for my 9th championship?" Toto laughed on the other end of the line. "Lewis, we've been ready. The question is, are you?" Lewis looked out his window at the Monaco sunshine. Somewhere in the world, young drivers were getting into go-karts for the first time, dreaming of Formula One careers. Thanks to what had happened at Silverstone, their dreams would be protected by honesty and fairness. "I'm ready," Lewis said. "Let's go win some races." Lewis Hamilton had started this journey as a driver who felt cheated and angry. He was ending it as a champion who had saved his sport and protected the dreams of future generations. The truth had set Formula One free. And Lewis Hamilton was ready to race again. That we'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and tell us which country or city you're tuning in from. It's amazing to connect with fellow F1 fans from around the world. If you enjoyed this emotional journey and want to see more incredible stories like this one, please hit that like button. It really helps us know what content you love. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel and ring the notification bell so you never miss our latest videos featuring the most fascinating stories from the world of motorsport. Most importantly, please share this video with your friends and family. Stories like Lewis's remind us that standing up for justice and truth can make a real difference. By sharing this content, you're helping spread kindness, awareness, and inspiration to others who might need to hear that courage and determination can overcome even the most powerful forces. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey. Until next time, keep racing toward your dreams and never stop fighting for what's right.